you are feeling like superstars right now. We are so thrilled to have all of you here with us tonight. My name is Jason Homer, and I serve as the Program Director for Mentoring and Teacher Leadership Initiatives at Sarah. And it's been a great joy to have the opportunity to serve right alongside our 2014 South Carolina Teacher of the Year, Darleen Sutton. Darleen, many of you met her as part of the paparazzi team earlier, and she was taking your pictures, and I think that's a great thing for you to see. That's genuine Darleen, down to earth, ready to serve, ready to reach out and make a difference for our students and our profession. I'm proud to have the opportunity to get to know her and to learn from her this year. She's a first grade teacher at Pickens Elementary School in Pickens, and we're thrilled to have her with us at Sarah. I want to share just a brief quote from some of her students. It says, her students inspire her to laugh, to offer hugs freely, to hop up and say ta-da when she falls down, and to keep a large supply of erasers, because everyone makes mistakes sometimes. First grade is a wonderful grade to teach because the children are very honest, and they don't hesitate to tell you when you have a bad hair day. They're trusting and they believe everything you say is factual. They possess a large degree of seeing the good in everyone. And I think if we could see the world through the eyes of first graders, what a wonderful world this would be. And I can't think of a better first grade teacher to be sharing those perspectives than Darleen Sutton. I've come to know her and appreciate her and all she does for our state and for our kids. And it's now my pleasure to introduce you to Darleen Sutton, our 2014 South Carolina Teacher of the Year.
Well, welcome to Sarahwood. It's so good to see you guys. I had fun out there with you earlier. I want to start tonight by telling you that I am proud to stand before you and say, I am a teacher. I'm proud to be a teacher. It's something that is in my blood right now, and I just can't think of doing anything differently. But my journey to get to this point to be here with you at Sarahwood tonight did not begin like that. So I'd like to share with you about my adventure and the steps along the way that brought me to this point. I grew up in Oconee County. It's in the golden corner of the state, in a little community called Tomasi. And in Tomasi, I lived on a farm with my family, with my mom, my dad, my two sisters. I'm the middle of three girls, and my grandmother. And while I was on that farm, I loved all the adventures and the mischief that I got into. Along the way, if you wanted to find me, you would find me in the barn with the animals. You'd find me out in the pasture playing softball. You would find me in the family garden, which I absolutely loved. Or I was playing Wonder Woman on my dad's little red Carmel tractor. And usually it was my little sister who was tied up with the yellow lasso. But we'll spare you the rest of those stories. But those things were wonderful. I had so many adventures, so many experiences along the way. But the thing that stood out to me the most, that I think I have treasured more than anything, and my parents still have, is that they purchased a set of World Book encyclopedias and a set of childcraft books. For see, living out in the country, trips to the library didn't come that often. So for me, those books were a wonderful refuge. Now, I loved the encyclopedias, and I'm not ashamed to say I was one of those little nerds who sat around and I read those encyclopedias and just inhaled everything that was in them. And then I was excited to get to share anything I read with anybody who would listen. So I think that I used that skill of being able to do research and learning about things and then communicating with other people. That prepared me along the way to become a teacher. And then those wonderful childcraft books. Did you guys, are you know what I'm talking about? Okay. I would sit my little sister down beside me and I would read to her. I would read the poems and the fairy tales and the nursery rhymes. And I learned how to change my voice and to bring those alive. And then we would go out in the yard and act them out. You know, so I learned about bringing a book alive and the importance of reading. Along the way, working out in that garden, I learned about time management. I learned about working together as a team. and a strong work ethic. Because I'm going to tell you, there were many times I would be walking down that road, green beans, thinking, this thing is never going to end. I just want to go play. But I knew that I had to finish. And the reward was at the very end, in the winter months, when my grandmother would open that can of green beans, and they tasted like summer. So I learned about that strong work ethic. And my grandfather would take me fishing on beautiful Lake Cherokee. If you've never been there, you need to check it out. And that's where I learned to be a good listener. For you see, I talked a lot, and the fish didn't come to us very much, so I learned I had to listen. And as I became a good listener, I learned more about the world around me. And that's a skill that I still use with my children today, and when I communicate with adults and with the parents of my students. So, although I wasn't one of those little girls who dreamed early on about being a teacher, I realize now that the adventures that I had prepared me to become the teacher that I am today. And I'm so thankful for those experiences. But then I got to high school. And while I was in high school, when you're a little kid, they say things to you like, honey, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to do? But then when you're a senior, they're like, what are you going to do? Have you decided on a name? What are you going to do to provide for your family? The tone changes. And I was like, I don't really know, because there were so many things that I wanted to do. There was a point where I wanted to be a scientist. My mom did research on cotton. I wanted to be a veterinarian. I loved all the things that I had seen happen on the farm. I wanted to be a country singer. Yeah, my sisters and I, we were a trio. We loved singing. I thought, that's a possibility. There were so many things that I wanted to do. I didn't want to be limited. So I'm a list maker. I started making those lists. And as I started on that list, I realized I didn't have to be limited. There was one career profession that would allow me to do all those things I loved and work with young children, which was something I love to do, is nurture and develop and care for those things that were younger and smaller than me. So I decided education was the right path. But my true inspiration to become a teacher came from a person who's very dear to me, and that was my papa. Now, my papa was the sweetest, kindest man you will ever have met. But there was one thing that always troubled me about Papa. For you see, my Papa could not read. It wasn't that he wasn't an educated man. He was a brilliant man. But his life situation didn't afford for him to have an education. Let me tell you about Papa. When Papa's father, he had a wife, his first wife, before she passed away, they had 13 children. And then when he married his second wife, they had 8 children. And my grandfather was the youngest of 21 children. His father passed away. I know, isn't that funny? The teacher cadet students, when I told them that, like, what? But it's true. And life was a different time back then. No TV, no VCR. But my grandfather was the youngest of 21 children. And his father passed away before he was born. And his mother passed away when he was around the age of 3 to 5. We don't really know because it wasn't documented. But his mother passed away, and DSS was called to take the children into custody because there were some young children. And he had sisters, and his older brother thought he was doing Papa a favor when he took him. When they knew DSS was coming, he took him and they hid in a drainage ditch. And they watched as the social workers came and took the sisters away. And Papa was afraid. He was a little boy, and he was afraid. So he did what his older brother told him. And that's why he did not receive a formal education. His sisters were adopted by loving families who educated them, and they were families, the children were later reunited. But Papa's life, it consisted of working in fields, sleeping in barns, doing things that he had to do in order to live, to survive. And that, I'm telling you, my Papa was the greatest man because he proved to me that every child has the potential to learn if they have the right motivation and the right person there with them. But I love to read. And I knew all the adventures I had taken in my mind and all the things that I had learned through reading. And I knew the wonderful man my Papa was, and I often wondered, what could he have done had he received that education, had he been able to read? And that, my friends, is what sealed the deal. Because I decided then and there, if I had anything to do with it, no other child was going to suffer that same fate that my grandfather did. I was going to be a teacher, and I was going to help children learn how to read. And I'm so thankful I get to teach early childhood because I've worked with kindergarten and first grade and second grade, and most recently been a first grade teacher. And that's where children learn to read fluently. And so my dream has come true, in that I have helped children, and I'm excited that I get to continue to do so. So I have my papa, and he's been quite an inspiration to me. I guess when I decided to become a teacher, I wanted to be a champion. Now what that means is summed up by Rita Pearson, and I'm going to read you what she said. She said, every child deserves a champion, someone who never gives up on them, who understands the power of connections and insists that they become the best they possibly can be. Kids don't learn from people they don't like and they don't trust. So with my goal to become a teacher, I attended Wiggett University in Wiggett, North Carolina, and received my early childhood degree in education. And then I went to Winthrop University and got my master's degree in elementary ed with an emphasis in early childhood. And that is when I realized, hey, I've done what I need to do. I get to go teach. And I don't know if you guys remember back in those days, when you're fresh off the blocks, like, woo, here I come. I'm ready to teach. And so look out, Oconee County, here I came. And I became a kindergarten teacher in Oconee County at Orchard Park Elementary, and before that it was Westminster Preschool. And I treasure those days. But I didn't stay there in that position because I took sort of a little flip. On May the 29th, I closed out the school year. I remember I was standing up on top of a shelf and my principal came and said, get down from there, because I was 9 months pregnant at the time. And so on May 30th, that next morning, I went to the hospital and delivered my oldest daughter. And my husband and I had arranged for us to stay home. I wanted to stay home and take care of her. And I thought I could stay out of education a little bit. For you see, my daughter is my love. And I have two now. They're my love. But teaching is my passion. And so it turned out that I got a call from Tri-County Tech, and some of my friends are here from the upstate and know what I'm talking about, from Tri-County Tech, and they said, would you come and teach some early childhood courses for me? And I thought about it and prayed about it and said, yes, that will work for me. For you see, my husband, bless his heart, he is a teacher too. And he was coaching football at a high school, Pendleton High School, right near Tri-County. So in the evenings, I would put everything in the car seat and drive over to Tri-County. We'd meet in the parking lot. I'd take my backpack, he'd take the infant carrier, and we'd trudge off. And it worked out splendidly. Must not have done too bad of a job, because Greenville Tech called and said, will you come teach for us too? So that worked out great. It allowed me to be able to impact teachers who were working with young children while I cared for mine. And along the way, I had a chance to work with the Office of First Steps and with National Dropout Prevention and helping to improve the quality of care in child care centers across the state. So those are some of the opportunities that brought me to this point. But I said along that way, my second daughter came along. And whenever she started kindergarten, I went back to teaching too at Pickens Elementary. And that's where I've been until this past year. And I have to tell you that I'm very thankful to have a chance to teach first graders. Because as Jason shared with you that quote earlier, they're some of the most honest, sincere people I know. I just consider it a privilege that I get to go and work with them. And I've been asked this question many times, do you miss your kids? Yes. But I'm okay with that because I know that I get to have a chance to represent and advocate for children across the state. And so I have a piece about that. But I want to tell you that one of the things that Rita Pearson brought out too was about being that champion. And she talked about how children deserve to have someone who will stand up for them, someone who will look within them and see the potential that lies there. And I am living proof that there was a teacher at one point who saw potential in me. Let me tell you about this. This wonderful teacher was Miss Mason, and I wish I could tell you her last name, but as a third grade teacher, I had such respect for her, I never called her anything but Mrs. Mason. But Miss Mason had my older sister, and my older sister is very unlike me. We love each other dearly, but we're not alike. For she was very prim and proper, and she followed all the rules and did what she was told to do, and not so much with me. I was a tomboy, life-loving tomboy, tree-climbing, skint-knee, short-haired, boot-wearing tomboy, and was happy to be so. So Miss Mason knew this, coming into it. But in preparing for the school year, You know, again, back in the day, they didn't have all the technology that they have today. So in getting ready for a classroom, things were a lot simpler. Miss Mason prepared for her students by taking a piece of construction paper and going through magazines and cutting out pictures of children. She would take them to the construction paper and write each child's name beneath one of those pictures. So I walked into her classroom because my sister had her. I knew she was a fantastic teacher. I couldn't wait to learn from her. I walked in, and much to my dismay, on the wall was a picture of this beautiful brown-haired, long-haired, chestnut brown little girl in a pink satin dress. After I got over my initial shock, I just couldn't believe it. Then I sat there thinking, oh, Miss Mason is so dreamy. She's so wonderful. She reads the best stories. I looked back at that picture and thought, if she thinks that could be me, that's what I'm going to do. So I went home that afternoon thinking that she wanted me to look like that little girl. I went home and pulled out my best Sunday dress. And then I pulled out a pair of brown corduroy pants. Because, no self-respecting tomboy's going to do flips on the monkey bars, without his pants on. And I went to my sister's room and got her big floppy pink bow. Needless to say, if you've ever read Ramona the Pest, the Ramona books by Darleen Cleary, you probably have a good idea of what I looked like that day. Very, very mistaken. But thank goodness the dresses didn't last long, because Miss Mason conveyed to me that it was not what I looked like that mattered to her. What mattered to her was the potential that lied within me. And she saw that potential, and she helped me to realize it. And I love her for that, because she set high expectations and she would settle for nothing less. And I respected her so that I rose to that occasion. So she is living proof that if a student has someone who believes in them and sees the potential within them and helps them rise up to it, they will do so. Because I would have done anything she asked me. I would have even worn those dresses for the rest of the year if she had wanted me to. But as teachers, students deserve for us to look inside them and see the potential, to look past the short hair and the cowboy boots, and to look into them to see that there is a jewel there, and it's our responsibility to find it and figure out how it is best for us to help that potential rise to the surface, help that child to view themselves as a learner and to see the potential within. Lee Iacocca, CEO of Chrysler, said this: in a rational society, the best of us would aspire to be teachers. Think about that for a minute. The best of us would aspire to be teachers. And the rest of us would have to settle for something less. Because passing on civilization from one generation to the next ought to be the highest responsibility and the highest honor there can be. And I agree with him. Being a teacher is an incredible opportunity, and it needs to be celebrated. Now, I told you my husband's a football coach. So any movie that comes on that has anything to do with football, we watch it. And one of my favorite ones is We Are Marshall. And I love it because that town, that community, those players, they overcame lots of adversity to take that field. And when they did so, they proudly said, "We are Marshall." And I think as teachers, there are obstacles in our path. And there's oftentimes things that come our way that we may not understand. But we teach on because that's what we do. We are teachers and we're good at it. So I think that we need to be like, when we go into our classrooms, we need to be like those players who took the field and say, we are teachers. We are educators. We make a difference each and every day. Because you do. What you do is not in vain. Now, not only do we like football in my household, but we like any kind of sports. And my papa, my dear sweet papa I told you about, I would love to go over to his house. He and Meemaw would be there, and Meemaw usually had a pot of pinto beans cooking and some cornbread. Papa would say, "Come on in here, let's watch the Braves play." And he would talk about Bobby Cox like they were best friends, And then I got married, and I married a Yankees fan. So, I know, imagine that. But anyway, I converted, and so I really just cheered for the Braves when they play each other, but we won't tell you. But I got to know the Yankees players. And there's one who really stands out to me, and it's Mariano Rivera. And he is the type of man that is an excellent player, by the way. He's a closing pitcher for them. But he also is a man of integrity. And there was an article, I told you I love nonfiction too, so this is my Sports Illustrated. There's the Sandman on the front, Mario over there. Mariano Rivera, they call him Mo. I want to read a little excerpt for you about him, and I'll explain why I'm reading this in just a second. It goes like this. Yeah, goodness, I should have brought my little glasses. Yankees bullpen catcher from 1996 to 2007 was Mike Grzelo, and he says this. He says, in 1996, he became a setup guy, and John Wetland, our closer at the time, started talking to him every day. Wetland knew that Mariano would take over for him the following year. That's something that got lost, how important Wetland was to him. The closer doesn't usually take the next closer under his wing. Wetland did, and Mariano did the same with every reliever that came through. Mariano became their mentor. He schooled the relievers one by one. He would sit with each one separately at times and do what Wetland did for him to make sure they had a better chance at success. I always marveled at that dynamic. If someone had a tough outing and I saw him talk to them about how to let tough situations go, I always thought that was impressive. Wetland triggered it, but Mo had the intelligence to absorb it and take it to another level with all the guys through the years. So many guys get distracted about other things, especially off the field. Money, their own personal achievements, but I never saw that in Mo. He was always focused on the team, on what do you need me to do? In 12 years with him, I never heard him mention anything about his contract, his number of saves, his ERA, or any personal achievement. I'd say, we've got to get to 40 saves, and he'd go, how many do I have now? He really didn't know, because he was focused on the game. He was focused on making sure that the next generation of pitchers was prepared. And guys, I feel like I am among the stars tonight, because that's what you do with the pro team and the teacher cadet programs. You are preparing our next generation of teachers. And you already realize the significance that you have, the impact that you make on our future. And you are preparing the ones who are going to take over for you. So I applaud you in that. You're a lot like Mariano, and what you do is not in vain. I was driving around the state a couple weeks ago in that beautiful BMW that they have so graciously given me. And I'm going to tell you, I'm so thankful because there's some crazy drivers on the road. And I feel safe in that little thing going about town. But I was listening to the radio and there was a story on there. And it was talking about this lady. And she had gone to a coffee shop. And while she was sitting there, she was reading a book and she had her phone out. And she was supposed to let her husband know when she was going to be leaving. And her phone went dead. So she saw an outlet, an electrical outlet, an energy source. And she thought, oh, I'll just go plug in my phone. But as she headed over that way, she kind of got bumped out of the way. Apparently, that was the hot spot. Everybody wanted to be near that power source. So she sat and she watched, because she had time. And she watched as people with laptops and iPods and Nooks and all those little contraptions that people use on a daily basis, she watched. And there was arguments over who was going to go and plug theirs up, and someone even pushed her out of the way. But in hearing that, I realized, you know what? We, as teachers, we need to be that power source. We need to be the ones that students are coming to. We need to give them the energy that they need to be successful in life. And for these future teachers that we're dealing with, we need to empower them. For you see, whenever you plug in your cell phone, it gets the energy it needs for a little while. But then you unplug it and you take it on your way. And it's able to function and do what it needs to do on its own. And that's what we're doing with our students. We're empowering them. We want them to be a star shining brightly, that they don't need our power source all the time. We enable them so that they can go and they can shine brightly. I believe that you all are stars because you're making an impact on our future. And you shine brightest when you ignite a spark of excitement in a future teacher. And that's something to be proud of. I'm so honored to be in this room with you guys. The next time you go to plug in your cell phone or your laptop or whatever electronic device you are plugging in, let that remind you that you are that power source and that you make a difference in the lives of these students in the future of South Carolina and the other states that are represented here. You guys make a difference. And it's a powerful thing. Never take it for granted. In closing, I want to leave you with one thought. And that is that the stars are here to teach. Hit it, Todd. Y'all gonna make my dream come true like you could be a country singer.
Oh, baby, why don't we just turn that TV on? 315 channels of nothing but bad news on. Well, it might be me, but the way I see it, the whole wide world would go crazy if you didn't choose to teach. The shine stars are here at Sarah Wood. The Queen and the Earth got it all together just like we knew they would. To celebrate teaching and your dedication to keep the kids from going on crazy. Because you choose to teach down the hall or straight up the stairs, cause big and small will show that we care, baby. So glad you choose to teach. Your little bitty classroom may not look like lunch, but with your GC curriculum and all of your stuff, it's gonna be more than enough. With multi-school placements and lots of observations, it's almost driving me crazy. So glad you choose to teach down the hall or straight up the stairs. Children big and small will show that we care, baby. So glad you choose to teach.
Come right by me, little guy. Y'all stay with it.
It might be me, but the way I see it, the whole wide world would go crazy if I didn't choose to teach. Oh, baby, the stars are here to teach.
The thank you goes to Darleen. Can we just have one more big old round? I never knew you were going to get that kind of entertainment, right? Darleen, we have a thank you gift. We are so honored that you represent us. And I know how I feel that when someone stands up and can articulate that kind of passion about what I love to do and do it so beautifully with such grace and such wit and charm, then it just makes all of us proud. And so thank you so much.